Hello and welcome to my talk about the APT data streams and visualization as we handle them here in Stuttgart. My name is Patrick.stender and it's my pleasure to show you briefly what we are doing at the moment. As you may know, here in Stuttgart we are developing and operating our own custom-made APTs, as some other groups across Germany and also in Japan are still doing. These custom-made APTs are controlled with our software called Tab Control. Mostly these instruments have been developed over a decade of years, so the technology has changed and there are different interfaces available controlling the software, so our software had to adapt to different hardware. The software itself is based on C++, has a Qt cross-platform compatible user interface, and the main goal is to control the hardware during a measurement process and to store all data necessary for each atom detected to create a data set which we call raw file for later reconstruction. As mentioned before, a lot of data has to be recorded during the measurement process, as you already know. So we have to determine the voltage applied to the tip in the moment the atom leaves the tip. We have to control the laser position onto the tip. We have to measure the time of flight signal and some other data as well. From all the data coming from preamplifiers and other sources of data, the measurement software is evaluating the incoming signals and determine valid events and storing them with the respective information in the so-called, for us called raw data format. So here you see a snippet of the definitions. So we store the necessary information like the voltages applied. If you need a reflectron, you also store the voltage set to the reflectron, the detector impact position, the time of flight, a time indicator during the measurement, and the pulse window, which is identifying multi-hit events for later multiplicity evaluations. For the later reconstruction, a machine parameter data is necessary. As mentioned before, all atom probes slightly different construction, so therefore we need a so-called machine parameter file. The machine parameter file includes the detector area, detector efficiency, and other variables which have been determined by calibration of the instrument. So this parameter file is unique for each instrument. The file itself is written in JSON, so human readable, and the parameters depend on the respective construction of the machine. Equipped with a raw file and the parameter file, you would leave the laboratory and use the software which we call Skito to reconstruct your data. This is currently in the version 2.03 and still under development, so features are added and bugs are removed. All algorithms are C++ based. For the visualization we use OpenGL, and for the UI we use Qt. So the whole system is cross-platform compatible. Currently we are just using a Windows version, but Linux and Mac version are also possible. Initially you would create a project file containing not just the two files I mentioned before, the raw and parameter file, but you would also include an alloy file which gives you the definition on which atom should have this nice yellow color or blue color. I will go into detail to the alloy file later. If you have different sources of data, you can also load data from these, which includes tabsim files directly, POS files, EPOS files, and also ATO files, and some other. The software itself is built in a way that it guides the user through the reconstruction process. So it's a stepwise procedure. So you start with the project where you create your project file and determine the source of your raw data. So here you have all data available. The next step would be the raw data file inspection and filtering if necessary. So you can filter according to the data range, the voltage range, the radial range, attitudinal range, or whatever you would think about by creating a JavaScript which you can add into the pipe by determining which parameters you want to get into your script. A skeleton is created, you can add your code, and data coming out of your code is fed back into the data stream. So therefore you can also create custom scripts, which is quite convenient for students to get quick solutions for a few problems. After you have inspected your data and are happy with it, you would calculate the respective mass spectrum. And depending on whether you already have an LL defined, you can move the mass windows, which you need for color coding, just by drag and drop to the correct position, and check your data and identify your data as you need. For the alloy file, we are using also a human readable JSON file, which contains definitions of elemental species, so just pure atoms. There are some values stored for each element, and molecules are made out of these elements, giving a new definition in the molecule section. And last but not least, you would determine in this file the respective window from which position to which, for which element this window should be available. Of course, you can edit this file by hand. For a lot of mass windows or species inside your measurement, this could be quite tricky or tiring. Therefore, of course, the software contains the necessary information to help you through that. So all elemental data are stored in a database on an SQL database server. So you just click them and they are added into your alloy file. And you can also create molecules by clicking and then determine the parameters necessary, like density, constituents, and so on. If you are happy with the definition, you can also store them locally for your use. And if you are a very nice, kind person, you can also upload this to the SQL server so that anybody that is searching for a special name or a short name can have a look what's already stored for this respective element in the database. So they can reuse your definition of molecules and, of course, download them and, if necessary, change the parameters again for local use and store a second version if you are not happy with the first version onto the server. After having these definitions, of course, the reconstruction is quite important. For the reconstruction, we are using different algorithms based on published papers. The respective parameters are given here. Of course, the definitions, pseudocode, and code snippets are available online if you want to check whether the implementation is correct, or if you want to add something new, you can also add a custom script. So you can think about your own reconstruction algorithm and test it out, either just changing small aspects of the given ones, or just imagine your complete new reconstruction scheme and testing it out. Of course, we are adding different kind of new algorithms if published, so that this is under constant change. You have all necessary information to verify if your reconstruction is correct according to the respective reconstruction algorithm. Finally, you want to visualize your processed data. You can imagine that the data pipe in this direction is ending here in the so-called scene point. All the data available here can be further processed by adding different kind of modules. In this kind, for example, an element filter. This element filter, when clicked, gives you the options which are unique for the respective module. And then you can change or alter the data going further the stream. Of course, you can also branch the streams to get different branches for evaluation if you want to analyze different aspects of the tip at the same time. And by this, you can be very flexible in manipulating the data the way you want or evaluating the data you want. Of course, there are different tools available. These different tools include various filters and analysis tools like cluster search, isosurface, autoslice, composition profile, and so on. Having all these data created, of course, it's very important to export these data to known file formats for further processing with third-party scripts, software, and so on. Therefore, we offer quite a lot of predefined export functions, but you can also, from the whole data set, export your own file depending on the values you want to export in just a text or ASCII file. this was very quickly and briefly the way how we deal with our data. If you have questions, of course, I would be very happy to answer them. Please contact me by any possible way. And if you have questions now, I would be very happy to answer them. Thank you very much for your attention.
A quick question. How sort of interoperable is your software? Can it be used with can we open up any raw data file and run it through the same software? Or is it only for the sort of raw format that you have from your atom probes?
Of course, we developed it for our file format initially, but getting into contact with different groups, there was always the question how we can share data. So from all code we could get, we try to implement also functionality to import them as EPOS files, POS files, and so on. Not all files give you the full possibility of analysis because some data are missing. So if you would have something that would be generalized, of course, this would be a big benefit to be implemented.
Okay, great. We'll just hold on a couple of minutes in case we have any more questions. How accurate is the time since epoch defined to be? Could you correlate hits from different laser pulses with accuracy? I think this is related to whether you only have second accuracy or whether you need milli, micro, nanosecond accuracy, etc.
Yeah, using 64-bit, we have milliseconds accuracy with the epoch time, but we have this pulse window indicator, which gives you a unique identifier after every laser pulse. So you can decide in between every laser pulse. The time is just more for getting quick data on how the measurement developed over a long time of period.
Okay, thanks very much. Does the software have the possibility to take into account peak overlaps in the mass spectrum?
We are working on that actually, not yet, but we are going to implement this in the near future, yes.
And there was a sort of internal question. How do you see the technical committees work as someone who's developing atom probes yourself?
Oh, I think it's very positive. As I said, it would be very nice to get more, at least definitions of raw data or a unique raw data file set, which could be exchanged between different groups more easily. So there's always a bottleneck how to get the data from one group that has a different machine. I know we are just a very limited number with exotic machines, but it's still, for us, it would be very helpful.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I think we'll hear a little bit more about that later on. One last question. Is the software available outside of your group for other people to test and try, or is it closed at the moment?
Yes, yeah, of course. We would be happy to give out test versions. We are still under development, so any feedback would be great for us. So if you would like, you just give us a short mail, and me or my colleague would send out a version account so that you can test the version, the software.
That's great. Thank you very much, Patrick.